Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Kent City Council Workshop. Today is Tuesday, July 20th, 2021, and we've got two items on our agenda. The first item is the quarterly Sound Transit update, the Federal Way link extension in downtown Garage. And first up is Kelly Peterson. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council President Troutner, members of council. I'm excited to be here in person presenting this to you. I think every quarterly update has been online, so being in person, I like it much better, so I'm glad to be here. So far, our viewing audience, the Federal Way link extension is just under 8 miles and extends Sound Transit's light rail from the Angle Lake Station, which is just south of the SeaTac Airport, down to Federal Way. Along this alignment, there are 3 stations and 3 garages, 2 of which are in the city of Kent. One is located just off 30th Avenue South, north of the Lowe's, and the second one is located on the former Star Lake Park and Ride. When this light rail project is open in 2024, the Sound Transit expects it to take about 12 minutes to get from Angle Lake down to Federal Way, and by 2035, about 36,000 riders per day. This slide you've seen before. We've been updating it every time we come and give a council presentation. If you recall, the project is divided into 3 segments. Segment 1 is located in SeaTac, Des Moines, and a small part of Kent, between Kent Des Moines Road and 240th. Segment 2 is all of Kent from South 240th Street down to 272nd, which is the city limits. Segment 3 is in Federal Way, so that's not on here. What this slide shows you is the number of packages for each segment where we issue permits. And there are a number of packages that have permits that are corridor-wide packages. Everything in yellow has been issued. Those are the major permitting that where we have got permits out the door. A couple of ones that I'd like to highlight for you are in bold. That includes KDM Station, KDM Garage. KDM Garage was issued in March. Star Lake Station and Star Lake Garage. So KDM Station, Star Lake Station, and Star Lake Garage were issued since we met with you last. There are still a few packages that need to be issued, but that does not mean that we are done with permitting even once these are done. So part of the design build process has to do with permit revisions. So permit revisions are necessary because with the design build process, some of the first packages we got out the door were utilities so they can get going on utility work. So there's been, for a number of reasons, permit revisions are required. Sometimes it's to match up the packages to make sure there's no conflicts. Sometimes there's things that are discovered in the field. Some examples of permit revisions, one we had today was just a simple sign relocation. But a more complicated one had to do with construction sequencing down at Star Lake, where we need to keep water supplied to the Greenfield Park neighborhood. The way that it was sequenced and some things changed in the project, they also had to have fire flow coming down through the garage. We were able to relocate the water line. That work's going to be starting in about 2 weeks. We retain the water, and we're also getting a stub out to the property on the west side of 26th Avenue. So when that property develops, we'll have a water connection to that property, and we don't have to tear up the roads. Those are some of the things that we do through permit revisions. And the revisions will be ongoing through the construction process, but as we get later into construction, the permit revisions should decrease. So some of the stuff that's happened over the last quarter in the KDM Station area, dry utility work is nearly complete. We're waiting on some stuff from one of the private utility companies. That's delayed some things a little bit, but we keep pushing on them to try to get that done. Structure B, that's the elevated guideway between Kent Des Moines Road and the Midway Landfill. There's been a ton of work done on that. You'll see some photos in just a second, but all the columns are done. Almost all the capitals are completed. The capitals are what the girders sit on. False work for decking for the Kent Des Moines Station is being installed, and they're going to start pouring that pretty soon. And they're also tying the girders together with something called the diaphragm. For the Kent Des Moines Garage, again, that permit was issued in late March, and they have going like gangbusters on that portion of the project. Utilities and conduits are installed. The foundation has been poured, and the slab on grade pours were completed in June. And if you go out there, Councilmember Fincher took her out in the field. She got to see that. This week, as a matter of fact, on Thursday, they're going to, from level 1 to level 2, that ramp pour is going to occur. So driving up from level 1 to level 2, we're going to have a ramp this time next week. Level 2 deck forms are being set. So if you go out there, you see a bunch of wood on that garage. That's what that is that's the form for the level 2 deck. And they're going to go even more vertical next week, extending those columns on the garage. So structure B, this image is a part of structure B. It's only a part. This is the station area. Taken this image, the perspective is from the garage looking across the street towards, that's 30th, looking towards the southwest. So the elevated portion of the guideway, that's structure B. So as we get into it, this is the location of the alignment. North is to the left. Where you see red, the red is where the guideway is at grade. Where you see the yellow is the elevated guideway. And where you see the dashed blue areas, that's where girders have been set as of yesterday. So they are moving along quite quickly. So I have some perspective photos for you. This image was taken yesterday. This is 30th Avenue South. KDM Road is just behind me in the photo. And this is the station area. So the image that you saw where it said structure B, it's this area. The guideway extends down and it crosses over 30th. So that's the station area, the bottom right-hand corner, South 238th Street, that will extend out to Pack Highway. This is taken from the other end of 30th. Lowe's is right behind me when I took the photo. You can see where the guideway crosses the street there, looking to the north down 30th Avenue South. And then a couple more, just these are kind of neat perspective photos. This is taken directly underneath South 240th Street. Again, the backside of Lowe's is right behind us. Where you see 30th Avenue South, you can't see the road, but I promise it's there. The other thing I want to point out, this structure right here. That is right on Pack Highway. Pack Highway is that is called Highline Place. That image is in a number of these photos, and it helps give you some perspective. So as we move further along the guideway, this is directly under 30th Avenue. You can see where the girders are set. They'll put in some decking in that area and start getting the girders tied together. And when they tie the girders together, this image shows they set the girders, and it seems like it takes a while for them to get out of there. But this, this image right here, where you can see sky through the edge of the girders on the left-hand side, there's a bunch of rebar in there. So they have to do a bunch of work to get everything tied in there. They form it up, they pour concrete, and it gets everything tied together, come back and do the deck, and they have to work their way down the structure as they move along. So the garage. So this is an image you have seen of the garage before. And this is, I have some images in here to remind you of what this looked like in April of this year. So again, this is April. This is about a week after we issued permits. This is the drone photos that our staff took. This is about a week and a half later. Oh, let me go back one. So we've got some of the foundation that is being formed up right there, and then the little squares that you see on the side. That's the foundation for the columns. So if we go to the next, about a week and a half later, you can see how many of those columns are set there. They're starting to get all that work done and ready to go for the next steps. This one is right out in front. You can see the columns with the cages there where they're pouring concrete. This is actually the elevator pits for the elevators in the Kent Des Moines garage. So this was in April. This is coming back out of the ground April 19th, where you can see just a little bit more of the work. And this is yesterday. This is that same perspective right there in 3 months. So you got the ramp coming up. This is the north side of the garage. This is the south side of the garage going right here on the road right here. This is where 236 will be located, is right here, going all the way to the left, and that will cross Pack Highway into Highline Community College, and then to the right here or to the east, that's where the bus turnaround location will be. This is the southeast end of the garage, and you can see, if you can see it looks like the second layer, that is the forms for the second level 2 decking that they are going to do. And then this is the ramp that is going to be poured on Thursday on the garage. As we move further to the south, when I spoke to you last time, we talked about the wall that was being constructed at Midway Landfill, where they took out all the waste. That waste has all been removed. That's all completed. The wall is now completed as well. So the big image that you see here, that was the wall while it was under construction. And the upper right-hand corner, it's hard to get images of that because it's right along I-5. So these are courtesy of Sound Transit. But the image up in the upper right, you can see all the plastic is gone. What the contractor is doing now is they're going to tie in the liner that is on top of the landfill. It's underneath some soil. They're going to take that liner. They're going to weld that plaster, that synthetic membrane together, wrap it right around the backside of the wall so it's still contiguous, and they will be backfilling that with soil, and that work should be done in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Some of the other stuff the contractor is doing in this area, they are getting the drainage system installed and starting to get that all prepped for the guideway work as that comes down the pike. Actually, between here and KDM Station, they're also going to start working on some MSE walls, mechanically stabilized earth walls, where the guideway will come off the elevated structure back down at grade. So as we move a little bit to the south, between Midway Landfill to South 259th. If you drive down I-5, the contractor, they completed the clearing and grubbing work in June. And it is significantly different. They got in there, they've got it cleared out. They've done some mass excavation as well as some embankment work. And when you hear me say embankment, that's just getting it prepped for the guideway when the guideway or the train tracks come through. And then getting down just a little bit further south in the Star Lake Station area, there is significant utility work that has to be done that they have been working on. It's dry utilities, it's wet utilities. They're going to start some water work out there in 2 weeks. They got some sewer in. They're working around a number of challenges, but they are making progress. The wall that we talked about last time, that has been completed. That's right where 270th and 28th is located, and I'll show you some slides of that. There's been significant excavation work. If you're out there, it went from a contractor staging area to Star Lake Park and Ride, but the significant excavation is because of the Sound Transit-owned pond between the garage and 272nd Street, as well as starting the excavation for the garage itself. The contractor has taken the spoils from that excavation and using that for the embankment work, so it's all staying on the construction site. And then Structure Z, which is the guideway over South 272nd Street. I have some slides for you on that as well. So this is the image that was taken yesterday. This is the park and ride. So it looks very, very different than what it did even a month ago. 272nd is on the left. 26th Avenue is on just this side of the fir trees where it's labeled there. Where you see the truck and the pipes, that's where the pond is going to go. And right in here. And then the garage will be right here, but they still have quite a bit of excavation. So they're taking advantage of the dry weather, which is really good to help protect water quality and control erosion. So that's a good thing, the way that the contractor is sequencing their work. This is right along 26th Avenue. I took Councilmember Fincher out in the field. This is an image from that day that we were out there. This gives you an idea of some of the dry utility work. This is your comms, your phone, your power. This is right along the corner of the parking garage, and where that is, it's right in here, right along the sidewalk. This image gives you a perspective of where we're looking at, what we're talking about as far as the location of the garage and the pond. There's a green dot right here with an arrow. This next slide, this gives you a perspective of where we're looking at. We showed you this slide in April. The road, let me go back just a little bit. So the road, existing road, actually came across up here in that bus loop area, and then it came back down. But with everything, the way the geometry worked with everything, the road had to be shifted over. So this is the clearing limits that they had done in April. This is the wall that's being constructed. You can see the significant foundation for the wall. They're getting the forms up, the rebars in there. Next time it went out, we had the wall. They got some of the drainage features in there, and that they've started backfilling this. They have to do some additional backfilling, then they can get this shifted over and complete the utilities. Structure Z. The shafts are drilled, the columns are poured. They're working on false work for the capitals right now. So I wanted to show you this slide again. This is a perspective slide. Structure Z is right up here where your yellow oval is. And it's just two columns. The one on the north side is in the city of Kent. The one on the south side is actually in the city of Federal Way. So we worked together to make sure that there's aesthetics. Our planners, Jason Barnum, he helped with that to make sure that we have continuity with aesthetics when we're going underneath this structure. So this is the rebar cage that they're forming up, and they were getting this prepped yesterday. So they could come in and they could drop it. There's a gentleman for scale right there who's working on creating this cage. And then this is the structure, and they got some of the forms there. So this next slide, you look really close. It's a little bit hard because there's a shadow underneath there, but there's a column, and you look up on top of the column, you can see some of the rebar. Where we kind of have that trapezoid in there, that's where that rebar cage will go. They'll sit on top of the column. They got the forms around there, and then they'll pour. In the very background, there's another set of forms on the other side of the road, on the other side of 272nd Street. They're going to pour the one in Federal Way on Friday. They're going to pour this one in Kent, I believe it's next Thursday. So that has to sit for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. They'll pull the forms, and then it'll be ready for girders when the girders are ready and they get delivered to the job site. So looking ahead over the next quarter, of course, we have a number of permit revisions that we need to continue to work on. Structure B, they will complete all columns and the caps. They'll get more girders installed, the deck and the diaphragms, which connects the girders. Garage will continue to go vertical, and there will be some additional utility work. For segment 2, which again is south of between 240th, the north side of Lowe's and 272nd Street, More permit revisions. They'll complete the drainage for the Midway Landfill. They want to get that done before the rain starts. And there will be significant utility work that is ongoing down in the Star Lake area. There are traffic impacts. That's one thing I can say that Sound Transit has really done a good job at. We got the Greenfield Park Homeowners Association. We're making sure they communicate with those folks and they are aware of what's going on with traffic impacts. Construction of the abutment south of Structure B will occur. The abutment is when it comes off that elevated guideway, there's walls. It's that short perpendicular wall that will be constructed right there to hold up the walls. They'll continue and finish the excavation at Star Lake for both the pond and the garage, continue the embankment work at Star Lake Station, and starting the MSE walls at the Star Lake Station where the train will sit on. So sometimes it's on columns, sometimes it's on MSE walls. And then they'll prep for the foundation work, and of course, Structure Z will be completed during this next quarter. So I wanted to bring the traffic mitigation projects to council's attention. So we have two massive projects that are ongoing up on the West Hill. One is Federal Way Link Extension. The second one is the SR 509 project. So Sound Transit was much further ahead than WashDOT from a schedule standpoint, year and a half, 2 years approximately. And so they needed to get that contract out the door. What Sound Transit did is they pulled the traffic mitigation projects out of the contract. So that's none of the contract with Kiewit, because WashDOT needed to finish their environmental analysis. Once WashDOT finished that analysis, Sound Transit went back in and took a look and said, okay, now we have that full information. We can go out and figure out what these traffic mitigation projects are. So these are, I want to emphasize, these are draft, these are conceptual. Sound Transit has issued a request for qualifications. They have got responses. I don't know the results of that yet. They are not quite ready to share that, but we can share the projects with council and give you an idea of what they are. So again, these are draft and conceptual. The first one is located, this is Kent Des Moines Road and SR 99. And the big thing that happens on this is we currently have a single right turn from northbound SR 99 to eastbound KDM Road. This will give us 2 right turn lanes. The other thing that will happen is that will be frontage improvements consistent with our standards that will match Federal Way Link Extension stuff to the standards to the south, full improvements all the way around the corner there. So this gives us 2 turn lanes in this location. The next one, this is in the very far southeast corner of the city, and technically this project is not in the city, it's in Federal Way. But because it touches our city, I wanted to bring this to your attention. This is located at South 272nd Street and SR 99. What this project does is it adds a dedicated right turn lane from northbound SR 99 to eastbound South 272nd Street. The orange area that you see here, that's an area that will receive a full width overlay. That's part of the development agreement that council approved with the Sound Transit Board, that any haul route would get a full width overlay, and that's what that part is showing there. This next project, this is a left through modified to left through movement. And so this, right now, this is the off ramp right next to the Star Lake Station. When you come off that off ramp, the far left lane, you can turn left, or you can go, you can only turn left. The middle lane, you can turn left and you can go through. But what this does is it modifies it to have 2 lanes that can turn right. The other thing that's important to note is that in front of the Star Lake Station, this will be a full lane. You can see where it pinches off a little bit there for the bus stop. That will be a full lane coming through. And that's something that we fought for during the development of the development agreement. That is something that's in our transportation master plan, and we did get that. This next one, Military Road and South 272nd Street. So this is east of I-5. What this does is right here, we only have 2 lanes right here. So this is going to give us a dedicated left turn, a through, and a dedicated right turn to ease congestion in this location. This is my favorite one of all of these. So this is South 272nd Street. This entire 272nd Street in this area will receive the overlay. But the main point of this project is right here at Star Lake Road. On the southern side, southern right-of-way line of South 272nd Street, that's the city limits, okay? There is a signalized intersection at Star Lake Road. We own and maintain that. There is no left turn lanes here. So during the PM commute, people are trying to turn, it slows down. This will get us dedicated left turn lanes in both directions at that intersection. The other thing that happens here is because they have to widen the road here and they have to do frontage improvements on that south side consistent with our standards. So when we get wider sidewalks, you can see that purple area. The wider sidewalk will go up to that purple area, and that will extend between the traffic mitigation and the regular Federal Way Link Extension project all the way up to the Star Lake Station. The next one is at Reith Road and 259th Place and Military Road. This puts in a dedicated right turn lane. We'll also get sidewalks along that location where they're adding those improvements. And the last one I have for you, this is the last slide of the presentation. This is SR 99 and South 260th Street. Essentially what this does is for east and westbound, it adds flashing yellow arrows. So it increases the efficiency of the intersection. So that's my presentation tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Kelly. Councilmember Thomas, do you have a question?
Thank you, Madam President. So, Kelly, two things. I think you've answered one. Obviously, the drier weather has helped speed things along significantly, could we say?
I don't know that I'd say significantly. They plan for it.
Sub 4, okay.
Does help.
The other question I had was on 272nd that you just showed a couple of slides back. Will that go all the way down to how far down? Lake Fenwick Road or all the way to the valley or?
Oh, as far as the overlay?
Yeah.
That goes out to approximately I-5. I got the exact.
Oh, going east.
Going east to approximately I-5. It's the haul route. It doesn't go all the way down to the valley.
Okay.
So we approve the haul route. They can't start driving all the way down to the valley as a part of their haul route.
Okay.
So it's within the confines of the development agreement.
Thank you.
Councilmember Boyce, followed by Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you, Madam President. Same question I always ask. How things going, the relationship, any concerns? Are we moving forward? Any hiccups?
I think things are going very well. One of the biggest challenges that we've had with this project is staff that's turned over. And so personally, I can relate to that, but those are challenges that we have to face. And so sometimes there's been staff turnover with Sound Transit, there's been staff turnover with Kiewit. We need to maintain those relationships, but overall things are going very well.
And I did ask Madam Mayor, but I want to hear it from you as well. So what going on with the here down in Kent?
So I will be taking a new position August 1st. I'll be Deputy Public Works Director, and so I'm very excited about that.
Good.
Thank you.
Good job.
Congratulations once again on your promotion, and I just want to say thank you once again, especially with your bosses here, because I just learned so much that day that we were out. We went over the new streets that are coming, the sidewalks, but spending all of that time, even the time that we spent in the office, you know, we look at the list here and you see all the changes, you see all the lists and things that they've done, but actually seeing the stacks of books that may be changes or maybe on one small section just doesn't, seeing it here doesn't do justice to the stacks of and drawers full of information that they have, the maps on the wall, and just the knowledge that you hold. So I was very appreciative. And you know, getting to not only talk to you, but one of the supervisors out there, just very valuable for knowing and appreciating the amount of work that both you and your staff go through. So it's your crew that I extend that thank you to. But also just hopefully our public knowing that we see a large part of it here, but there's a much larger part of it that you guys are taking, that you guys are handling, keeping your hands on, representing Kent well and making sure that Kent fares well in all of this. So my deep appreciation to you.
Thank you. I will extend that to all the staff working on it. It's a fantastic team, and I absolutely enjoy working with them.
Well said, Councilmember Fincher, and I certainly enjoy these quarterly updates, and I've mentioned it before. I think the pictures really say a lot, but of course, when you can be up there and see it in person, that obviously has a bigger impact, but thank you very much. Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. Kelly, I just want to tell you that was a really good presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciated it.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Now we are going to welcome Matt Gilbert to talk about the downtown garage.
tried to talk him into letting me go first, but I have no photos for you yet. I'm sorry, my name's Matt Gilbert, Deputy Director, ECD. It's good to see you all in person. Yeah, I have no photos yet. Someday I hope to. This downtown garage project remains in the planning stages. As you know, I last updated you back in April. Our update, or that update, I think led to some real concern on the part of the council, and as a result of that update, you all signed a letter. Actually, I'm not sure who signed it, but it came from the council expressing that concern to the Sound Transit Board. We'd talked about cost cuts, project delays, as Sound Transit goes through its big realignment. So I'll cut to the chase here, and then I'll give you a little bit of background. The good news is that the project remains financially on schedule. As Sound Transit moves through its realignment process, it works through a series of proposals that go before the executive board and then the complete Sound Transit board. Right now, the Kent, Auburn, and Sumner garages are kind of being considered as one, and because they're ST2 projects, they remain in what they call Tier 1 for moving forward, which means that they'll move forward with minimal delay, more or less on schedule. So that's good news. I think the lobbying efforts and the feedback to ST has been effective in that way. So that's the good news. So I guess I should just sort of step back just for a little bit of background. I only have 6 slides. So this should go quickly. This is a little bit repetitive, but just in case you forgot, I'll jog your memory. So it's called the Kent Sounder Station Parking and Access Improvements Project. It has the long name because it's not just a garage. It's also creating improvements around the garage area that you see highlighted there in yellow for pedestrians and bikes to make the site and make parking and access to the station easier, not just for cars. So obviously the garage is the big part of the project, though. It's a 534 stall garage. Also, I left out the bus improvements. There'll be some bus queuing that will allow better transit access to the site. As I said, this was part of ST2. It was approved by the voters way back in 2008. So we've been waiting for a while. And we moved forward significantly back in 2020 when the city and Sound Transit agreed that this cold storage site and the surrounding area would be the location of that garage. Obviously the garage is needed. We're kind of working on pre-pandemic levels and assuming that our region will get back to the sort of something like normal mobility. And obviously this is a generational project. And so we are, counting on the fact or kind of remembering the fact, remembering the level of service that that Sounder provided before the pandemic, which is about 1,900 riders a day, most of which arrived by car. So there is a demand for parking here. The garage was, 97 to, we're saying it was full. It was on an average day, it was around 97, and there were extra people parked in the lot. So there was even overflow. There's definitely demand. And, all of the Sounder system is seeing this increased demand. So there's obviously, it serves a lot of Pierce County, getting up into Seattle, coming through Kent and Auburn. So we know that the demand is there and we expect it to grow. So that was before. Now I'll kind of fast forward into the current realignment details. As I said, it's good news. The Sound Transit Board Chair is named Kent Keel, and he put together this proposal to keep our garage as well as Auburn and Sumner in Tier 1. Now, that's something that I said goes through something like a legislative process or a board process where they're able to offer amendments to that. No amendments so far have been offered, or any amendments that might be in the offing have not been released yet. So as of now, we're in good shape. This is just a quick snippet from the staff presentation from July 8th. As you see, Tier 1, there we are in yellow at the bottom. So the next steps, we expect action from the executive committee by August 5th. And as there's debate around these things, so we don't expect, it's hard to say exactly when the final decisions will be made, but August 5th will be the next big day for action, or expected action. Sound Transit has said consistently since 2020 that they want the realignment done this summer. So that's how we're kind of framing our expectations for the time being. And finally, we've also been working on the project itself. We've got the financial part with the realignment, but there's also a lot of details that lead to something on the order of what the level of detail that Kelly just presented. We're getting going with that, but there's a lot of negotiation about how that comes together, about the details of the project, what the city expects, what Sound Transit expects, and so we're working on a development agreement to spell that out. Now we're continuing those negotiations. So as those start to come together and come into focus, I'll plan on updating you again. So that's all I have tonight, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you, Matt. Any questions? Councilmember Larmer.
Matt, any estimates on, given the delays, but if the information comes out August 5th and everything looks good, when would we potentially be breaking ground? Within any ballpark?
Well, the Sound Transit's own estimates would look at a complete garage by 2025. So I guess we could back that out a couple of years for groundbreaking.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then our next presentation is the Public Records Request 101. So I'd like to welcome Kim Komoto.
Hello. It's a different point of view. So I'm Kim Komoto, the city clerk, and I'm going to give you guys a presentation on public disclosure requests. And feel free to just jump in and ask me questions as we go. So just kind of just a brief overview of the clerk's office. I have a budgeted staff of 5. Myself, the city clerk, I have a public disclosure administrator, a records management administrator who manages retention and destruction. I have a public disclosure analyst, which works with the public disclosure administrator. Those 2 positions are full-time dedicated to responding to public records requests. And then I am budgeted for 1 more position that has been vacant since August of 2020. So in the process of looking at hiring somebody to fill that position. So just generally, the clerk's office and the responsibilities of my office. We're responsible for properly retaining all city documents, taking care of council agendas and minutes, coordinate timely responses to public records requests. And since May of this year, my office has taken over the task of gathering police records in response to public records requests. We also ensure that our ordinances are codified into the Kent City Code, and then we train staff on records management and public records requests, processes and procedures.
Kim, that position, you guys have been swamped. We all know that. That position been open almost a year. Mm-hmm. And that's by design, or we can't find the right people, or what?
I'm a penny pincher.
Okay.
And, I tend to analyze things a lot to determine whether I need something or not. And over the past year, with us being shut down, we haven't had the need for somebody. Okay. But now that we have taken over police records, mm-hmm. That's had a big impact on us. And then also the body-worn cameras and the addition of 50 more cameras coming on.
So we know you've been swamped. So I guess that makes sense with the pandemic. But now that that's over, so okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So getting into the public records, just the basics with it. In 1972, Initiative 276 was adopted, requiring most records maintained by the state, the city, to be made available to members of the public. And the statute is RCW 4256, which is commonly referred to as the Public Records Act, is where you'll find exemptions and the statute side of public records. And then in 2005, the state legislature directed the city attorney to adopt advisory model rules for agencies and people it provides guidance and best practices to both requesters and agencies on the Public Records Act process. So we look to both the statute and the WAC for guidance on what we need to do. So what is a public record? These are just the elements that need to be met. It's any writing, but writing is then defined. It can be a video, it can be statements. It's very broad. But then the record also has to contain information relating to the conduct of government or the performance of government. And then it also needs to be prepared, owned, used, or retained by the city. So for example, if we enter into a contract with somebody, I'll say an IT contract. We enter into an IT contract with somebody, and in that IT contract, there's a hyperlink to another contract. Even though that hyperlink document is not held here, because it's part of the contract, that hyperlinked version, we have to retain it. So it gets very complicated. But these are, when we get a public records request, we have to determine what do they want and what records do you have, and are those records, do they meet this criteria? So, if you send a personal email on city business, on a city computer, and it's just talking about, can you go buy so-and-so a birthday present? Yeah, you did it on a city device, but it doesn't relate to the conduct of government. Will that be disclosed? It might be, just because sometimes we just disclose things that, we'll disclose something in an email search, and we'll be like, okay, well, that's going. We don't have to, but those are the risks you run for.
Councilmember Fincher, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. So Kim, on those,
Microphone on? I'm just curious.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
so on those hyperlinks, does your staff have to go through documents to find those hyperlinks, or do the departments notate those somehow? Or do you guys have to put eyes?
When the
Yes.
contract comes through to us, that's when we catch it. And that's when we go and get, in the past, they may have not done that, but now we go and get that agreement and pull it into Laserfish and keep it with the record so that then we can retain it the proper amount of time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this just gets a little bit further into what is a public record, and these are just examples of what they could be. One of the things are our social media posts. And so we have, we subscribe to Page Freezer, which is a retention portal where it captures everything on social media, everything that was posted. If it was hidden, it's not hidden anymore. So when we get a public records request, we direct people to go to that site if they want to do their own searching for records. So when a request comes in, we're looking for records that already exist. We don't have any obligation to answer questions that people send us or to create records that don't exist. And we don't really follow this to the letter of the law because we try to provide the fullest assistance to the requesters that we can. If they ask us a question, we try to figure out, what are you looking for a document? Do we have a document that would be responsive to that request? So sometimes we'll get a request for how many employees are paying union dues. Well, we do have records, like we could pull their pay stub and produce every pay stub, but it's easier for us to maybe go ahead and create a record by running a query, doing an extract, and providing them with that. So we do work with requesters if they're not clear on their request. Records not existing at the time of the request, if they're asking for something that's in the process of being done, we just tell them it doesn't exist right now, but go ahead and submit a request later on and check back in a couple of weeks. So this just talks about, your responsibility if you're creating or receiving records. Think twice about sending personal emails on city devices and vice versa. And if a public records request comes in and you're asked to search, don't delete them. You need to provide them. You can provide us with context saying, please look at this. I don't really want it to go out, but, we'll, you just bring it to our attention and we review them and redact them as we can.
Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Madam President. Kim, I know in the past you've been inundated by requests from particular individuals where they amount to boxes of documents.
Right.
Have we got to a point where the legislature has approved being reimbursed for those, like a nickel a page or anything like that?
No. I'll get into the costs.
Okay, I'll wait.
But our hands are tied.
I know, I thought so. I was hoping maybe it would change over the years, but thank you.
Yeah. The whole idea of the Public Records Act is, transparency and making the records available to the public. So charging them is a barrier to that. So just kind of going into responsive records are not always disclosable. So we have a request for your personnel file. The records in there may contain your financial information. Is it responsive to the request? Yes. Is it disclosable? Parts of it probably not. And then we're allowed to black out or withhold those portions that are not disclosable. And then there are some where we're required to redact without discretion, and that's criminal histories, medical information, stuff like that. And that just goes right into it. These are some of the things that if we come across them, we know that we're probably going to have to redact them or withhold them. So searching for records, reviewing the records, that's the most time-consuming part of the job is we get an email search, we sort through the emails, we find the responsive ones, and now we got to go through and decide, can we disclose it? Or if we can't, we need to redact it. So the process of receiving a public records request, now that we have a portal, requests come into the city 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They don't have to be in writing and they can be anonymous. And the state requires us to provide this ability to submit an anonymous request. And so we updated our portal this past year to make it so that somebody can submit anonymously. The one caveat with submitting anonymously is you don't have to give us an email address. It's your responsibility to, when you submit the request, you have to write down the request number and then you've got to go in and search the request number and find your records because we can't contact you. So requests can come in through the portal, they can walk in, they can call us, email us, fax us, and they can also do it through another department. If somebody's in the permit center and they're working with them and they're like, okay, well, I want copies of all the certificates of occupancy for this parcel number. The permit center will probably have them fill out a public records request and forward that to us, and then we'll take care of it. So what we do is we receive the request, we enter it into GovQA, which is our system that we use to manage public records, and this is the same place that the public goes to submit their request. We review the request when it comes in. We look at it. Did they identify a record? Did they give us, some search terms and date ranges? Sometimes people will enter a request and it will just be nonsense or just totally blank. So then we follow up with them to make sure that we have enough information to be able to search for the records. And when somebody submits a request, as soon as they submit it, they get an email saying, we received your request. We will follow up with you in 5 business days. And on that 5th business day, we need to either provide them with the records, provide them with the internet address or a link to the records. And this would be, say, somebody wants to look at the council workshop from today, because it's interesting. And so we would just provide them with the link to our online portal. Or we can provide them with a reasonable estimate of how long it's going to take us to get the records together and give them to them. Some of these requests are very large, so we'll say, in 10 business days, we will give you we'll provide an installment of records to you. We can deny the request. If it's for an open and active investigation, we can categorically deny the request, and we don't have to provide any redacted records or anything. Or we can advise the requester it's unclear, we need clarification, we need more information. And this is where we really get into providing the requester with as much assistance as we can, because they don't always ask for the records the way that we would search for the records. Then what we do is in the system, we determine, okay, well, they want certificates of occupancy. We know those are held in ECD. So we assign an activity to the ECD staff. They get an email saying you have an activity. They go in, see what they're supposed to search for. Then they gather the records and provide the records to us. Then they'll go in and just check the box that they're done with their activity, add a note what they did. And then we get notice that they're done with the request. And then we'll go in and review the records, make sure that we've got everything. And if we're missing something, we follow up and ask them, it looks like you gave us the wrong thing, or it looks like we might be missing something. And then if we have to redact, we'll redact the records in the system. The public records system we purchase the redaction module. So we upload the record into the system, and then we apply the redactions, we black them out, and then when we finalize those redactions, the system automatically creates the exemption log that's required by law. It tells you, on this page, you redacted Social Security numbers. That has saved us a ton of time. Once we're done with that, we prepare a closing letter, and we provide them to the requester. Some people want to come in and inspect records for no charge. We make them available on the portable, or we print them, or they can come in and pick them up in person. I'll get to the fees in just a little bit. So when we're searching for these, we also run the email searches. So we have to perform the email search, and then we have to go through and sort through all of those emails. But these are some of the other records that we're going to be looking for. And I had already indicated our staff is now gathering the police records, and our requests that we get, over 95% of them are for police records. They really are. And since we took over the records from the police department, we very rarely reach out to them, but we do right now, just because we're still in the process. When we get really complicated ones and we're not sure where the records could be, they help us out with that. There are a lot of police systems to search. So searching for records, the search needs to be an adequate search. It doesn't need to be an exhaustive search. So we're required to identify, to determine where would these records reasonably be withheld. If somebody asks us for your personnel file, we're not going to ask the entire city to give us any records that they have with regards to a personnel file. We'll ask HR. We may reach out to that department if they might be holding personnel records within their office. And then, a big thing is if we fail to search a repository where they would reasonably be held, and then it's determined that we missed them and they happen to sue us, there's penalties involved with that. So, and we do push back to staff. If staff says, oh, it's going to be so hard to do, we say, well, you need to dedicate some time to this, because this is the most important thing. This is really in the city, I'm not going to, Pat's here. it's one of the highest liability and risk things. So we make sure that people are doing their job and that they dedicate the time that they need to search. So when we determine the records that we're going to provide, then we get to decide, are there fees associated with that or that could be associated with that? And we have some options on deciding fees. The state allows us to charge actual costs for copying and scanning the records. But in order to do that, we have to conduct a cost study, and we have to hold a public hearing before we adopt that. We can't charge, the regular staff time for searching. It's just for standing at the copier. You can also charge a flat $2 fee per request, but you have to be able to say these records cost at least $2 to provide. And what we ended up doing is we adopted the state's fee schedule, and we can charge 15 cents per page for photocopies, a dime for scanned records, and a nickel for every 4 electronic files. We can charge for if we're transmitting a ton of gigabytes, and we can charge actual costs if we have to go and purchase some kind of storage device, like a big hard drive for the records to give to them. And we can charge for redacting body-worn camera video to a certain group of people. We can't charge the attorneys or the person involved in we can't charge the attorneys for those records. So the fee schedule, for the most part, we get our money from body-worn camera video. Because as you can see, in order to charge for electronic files, you have to have 160 electronic files. Most of our records are digital now, so there's not a lot of copying and not a lot of scanning. But if somebody requests printed copies, then we'll charge for those. But for the most part, there's not a lot of opportunity to charge for producing the records. Once we provide the records to somebody, they feel like, we have a verbiage on the letter that says, if you feel like, we didn't give you all the records, let us know as soon as possible. We want to give you what you're looking for. But if we give them something and we redacted it or withheld it, and they don't agree that we should have redacted that, they can appeal that. And our process says that they can appeal it to the city attorney. If they decide not to appeal it to the city attorney, and my attorneys can jump in here, they can just sue us if they want to. They can bypass that process, yeah. And I'd like to knock on wood, no claims and no litigation costs in the last couple of years. That's our goal, is don't get sued. So. And since 2017, agencies subject to the Public Records Act report information about public records practices, and the requirement is that the agency has to spend more than $100,000 on managing public records requests. That's pretty easy to do when you have 2 staff in my department, 100% dedicated. I work on them, and we have records coordinators in multiple records coordinators in every single department working on public records, and also the money that's involved in the systems that you use to process them. And I've given you just a little bit of data on what we just reported, and if I didn't send our final report to you, I'd be happy to. We submitted our report prior to the July deadline. And it is interesting, but I think it's more interesting to kind of look at what other people are doing too. We provide most of our records within the 5 business days. That's, my staff are just rock stars and they love to get the records out. But that's a pretty impressive set of data that we do that so quickly. These are just additional reporting numbers. This cost to respond to public records requests, that's where we capture all of the departments, including the legal department. Legal department spends a lot of time with us on helping us with public records requests. And in 2020, we collected $3,800 in response to responding to over 6,000 public records requests. Most of those are body-worn camera video. And body-worn camera video, we cannot charge somebody that's involved, an attorney representing them. So the ones that we are charging, to be honest with you, are the media.
And Kim, are you collecting this prior to providing records to them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime there's a fee due, we send out the notice to them saying you pay the fee. You have 30 days to pay it. If you don't pay it, it's considered abandoned, and we just close out the request. Just a little bit, if we don't do our job, we're subject to getting sued, and public records penalties are crazy, and there's attorney fees involved in it. So, this is something, it's very stressful for staff to get sued, or know that, they worked on something that we ended up getting sued on. So we try really hard to avoid this. That's why I'm knocking on wood and not staying on that slide very long. And, really the best way to reduce your risk of litigation is to, manage your records, know what you have, know where they are, and get rid of them when you can. And this is a big project that we're working on. It's huge. It's, you have to have the records management system to be able to put the information in there, to be able to, have it help you know when to get rid of records. Really the challenges we face, the biggest challenge is redacting body-worn camera video, especially homicides, because you have to look at them frame by frame. It's a 7-hour video, and I've got staff looking at this really bad stuff for lots and lots of hours in increments of frames. And then also email searches. We try really hard to work with the requester. Give us more information, like give us a date range that you want us to search for. Give us somebody's email box, or give us search terms, and they'll say, I want so-and-so's email box for forever. Okay, it'll be 6 years before you get those. It's terrible. We've had a couple of email sorts where the initial search for one search term came back to 125,000 emails. Then you've got to try to figure out, how do I sort through these with what they want, and just try to open that up in your Outlook, and it takes forever. You can't do that remotely. It just doesn't work. So that is, sorting through emails is one of our biggest challenges. And then once you sort through it, now you have to get them in a format that you can redact them. And we just did that this past year, as we have a really good 2 kind of systems that will help us convert those records into a PDF so that we can upload them and redact them. Body-worn camera video, it's a big job, and the gals that I have doing it, they're amazing at it. And then also seeking clarification with people that just don't want to give it to you, or they won't contact you. I mean, we have processes that we do if they don't get a hold of us, but to work with somebody that either won't give you clarification or won't give you clarification that helps you narrow the search, that is a huge challenge. So that's a lot of information. I've got a lot of resources here. If you want any of this material emailed to you, I'll send it to you. If you get into the information and you want to talk to me or talk to legal, lots and lots of good information.
Well, thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you so much, Kim. I know it was a lot of work to put this together, but it was very beneficial. And the reason that I originally requested it was because we had gotten so many public disclosure requests, and I just started talking to you about it and having to bring you emails, and then you started telling me about how you had to read every single email. So those 124,000 emails or whatever, someone has to read all those. And then when you told me about the body-worn video that you have to watch, or your staff has to watch, it's a lot. And I know there were some complaints about people having to pay for it, but when you think about all the staff time spent on that and having the things that they're having to look at and the work that they're having to put into it, I think it makes sense. So just thank you for all of your hard work and for putting this together. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, anytime if you want to sit and go through the portal with us, I mean, it's a fun thing to kind of look and see that process. And, you know, with regards to somebody not wanting to pay for body-worn camera video, well, number one, they're not a part of the body-worn camera video. So we're giving it to the people for free that should be getting it for free and should be getting it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Michaud, for bringing this to the council. That's one of the things that we all have the ability to do, is bring some topics forward that I think are interesting to us, but also very informative to the public. So thank you. Great presentation, Kim.
Thank you.
Now go back in your corner.
I know.
I just hope I can do a good job when I recap it during the council meeting. So, all right. Well, that brings us to the end of our workshop. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will take a little break, and then we will be back here at 7 p.m. for council. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.